1, 2, 3, 4. Welcome to Crazy Chester. Welcome to Crazy Chester. Crazy Chester's Radio Hour. Welcome to Crazy Chester. Welcome to Crazy Chester. Crazy Chester's Radio Hour. Yeah, Crazy Chester's Radio Hour. Crazy Chester's Radio Hour.
Welcome to the Crazy Chester Radio Hour. My guest today is Brooks Forsyth. Brooks is a musician, singer, and songwriter from Boone, North Carolina, with deep musical roots that go back to early folk, country, bluegrass, blues, and jazz, as you can hear in his guitar playing and singing. Brooks has a new album coming out in just a few days on Arena Recordings called So Much Beyond Us. On the album, he collaborated with Buzz Cason, who's been a guest on the Crazy Chester Radio Hour several times, and he was recorded at Creative Workshop Recording Studio here in Nashville. Brooks, welcome to the Crazy Chester Radio Hour. Thank you for being my guest today.
Oh, thank you very much for having me, Andreas. It's a pleasure.
So, we met a few months back when you came to Creative Workshop here in Berry Hill to record your album with Buzz Cason. And now we're ready to release that record. So let's talk a little bit first about how that record came about and how you met Buzz.
Oh, wow. The story of meeting Buzz. Yes, that was, I guess it started playing in a country store, the Old Hampton store out in Linville, North Carolina. That's in western North Carolina, near Boone, if people know Boone, North Carolina. And I was playing in there, and a guy named David Walker, he was sitting there listening to me, and he said, "Oh, you got a nice little voice there, buddy." And I said, "Well, thank you, sir." And he at some point of the conversation said he used to sing backup for Marty Robbins. I said, "Well, wow. Well, you got any any people from back in the old days that you still keep in contact with? Because I'm always trying to meet new people and play music. I want to play in Nashville and all that." And he said, "Well, I know a guy named Spook Joyner, and he lives out in Nashville, North Carolina." I said, "Okay, well, that's kind of the opposite direction, but I guess that's a start, I guess it's technically Selma, but he lives, out in that area of North Carolina." Anyway, I drove out to meet old Spook and played some songs I'd been writing then, and he finally got me in touch with Buzz in Nashville. And so the next week I drove from Nashville, North Carolina to Nashville, Tennessee, and I met with Buzz Cason, and I played him some of my songs, and he said, "Let's keep in touch." And we didn't get together until about, I think, 2 years later, and I'd done a couple tours around the country. I stopped back through Nashville at the end of a tour and met back up with Buzz, and finally he said he was ready to cut an album. And so that's sort of and that's the abbreviated version of the story, as long as it was. So yeah, it was sort of a few different connections there, but it got me in touch with Buzz and all the people down here at Creative Workshop.
Yeah, and after you reconnected with him, everything went pretty smoothly and pretty quickly too. It seems like a couple months later you had a record.
That was incredible in terms of how quickly it happened. Yeah, that. I had met with him in, I think, the end of September of 2017, and then we were recording in, I think, December, and the first, I think the majority of the album was tracked in 2 days, which was incredibly fast for what I was used to, So yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, it happened in the blink of an eye. But.
So, mention a few of the people who actually made this record possible besides
Absolutely.
some
Well,
of the players.
Yeah, Parker Cason, his son, I mean, he was the primary engineer of the record. He was, Buzz and Parker were the producers, and it was great to have them, kind of the dichotomy of their two styles. I mean, they're very similar in a lot of ways, but Parker is very in tune with the new age of recording and using Pro Tools and the digital software recording and all the microphones. I mean, we were coming in and testing microphones before I even recorded one vocal line, but and Buzz comes from that old school of recording, and so he has all these suggestions about on the production end, in terms of cleaning up lines or parts of songs. And so it was really neat to have both of them working together, and it's almost like the old school and new school combined. And I think it brought an extra element to the album. In terms of the session players, gosh, I mean, that's what really blew me away. Also was there was John Radford on drums, Michael Rennie on bass, Sadler Vaden on electric guitar, Wanda Vick on, I believe, about 6 different instruments. I mean, she was just phenomenal. She walked in with a dobro, a mandolin, a banjo, a fiddle. I think I'm missing something, or a couple of instruments there, but she came in with all these instruments and was literally putting a different instrument on most of this. She was switching between each song, And
yeah,
so,
she's the woman for the icing on the cake.
Exactly, she was wildly talented. I mean, I'd never seen anything quite like it. But really, everybody that was involved. And then later on, Buzz brought in Eamon McLaughlin, who plays at the Grand Ole Opry, and Buzz said, "I hear strings on this one song." I said, "Oh well, by all means, I would love some strings on a tune." And so he brought in Eamon McLaughlin, and Eamon came in with I asked Buzz, "Do you have an orchestra or a symphony section you bring in for this?" He goes, "Well, we got a guy." Wow, that's pretty amazing. We got a guy that comes in. He brings in a violin, a viola, and a cello, and he ends up, arranging the string section on a song. And he was on 2 of the songs in this album. There's 2 songs. One, "Cast My Dreams to the Wind," and the other, "Don't Come Around No More." And he's playing a lot of the melody lines from the actual song, but he's also putting these counter melodies. Some things, that he actually wrote those counter melodies to the songs, so, which I thought was so good. But in essence, I just think that the way that these session players adapted to these songs, they might have heard demos of some of the tunes I'd sent to Buzz earlier, but really what it came down to was me having an acoustic guitar in the control room, and they were all huddled around. Between each song, they would listen to me play the song maybe once or twice on an acoustic guitar, and one of them would sort of chart it out loosely. They would take turns and then go make some copies real quick. We'd go into the recording studio, and a lot of the songs were cut in 1 to 3 takes. So for them to hear these songs maybe 10 minutes before we played them, and if you listen to the record, I mean, what sticks out to me is how tight they are. It sounds like a band that's been, rehearsing together or something. And it just sort of took me to a whole nother level with just what it looks like to be around professionals. I can really say that about pretty much everyone and everything that was involved in this process. So I'm thankful for it. I'm excited about it, and I'm happy the way it turned out.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned "Don't Come Around No More." Would you mind playing that for us?
I could probably play that for you. Yeah, let's see here. We got this tune. Give me the acoustic version here. Don't come around no more. I have grown to deplore all your ways. Don't just think everything is all fine. We're far past the time when we cross that line. You can say you're sorry, say it's all good, but are we? Let's just curtail this fairy tale. May your nights remain story. Your two-tone ways, don't just think everything is all fine. We're far past the time when we cross that line. You can say you're sorry, say it's all good, but are we? No, let's just curtail this fairy tale. May your nights remain story. Yeah, let's just curtail this fairy tale. May your nights remain story.
So you're an extraordinary, guitar player.
Thank you.
Flat picking and finger picking different. You play with pick every now and then.
I play with the. Thank you. That's nice of you. They have
so,
the plectrum and the thumb.
Yeah. So how did you develop your playing, and who were some of your or are some of your influences?
Well, a lot of the players that were kind of around, I guess the old finger-picking Nashville scene. I always enjoyed listening to Chet Atkins and Merle Travis, and I think the person who first turned me on to that stuff was Doc Watson. I always talk about Doc Watson when I'm at some point, if I'm playing a show or on the radio or whatever it is. He usually finds a way to get into the conversation. And I grew up in that area, like I said, in North Carolina. And he was from Deep Gap, which is about 20 minutes from Boone. And I used to go see him live as a very young kid. I think the first time I saw him was about 4 years old. And he would put on these unannounced concerts, and you'd be able to see him with about 30 other people, which was, at that age, you don't even realize what you're seeing, this guy who's toured around the world, and you get to see him sort of in a real intimate setting. But anyway, back to what you were saying, that the guitar style that he played was sort of a split between those two, thumb picking and flat picking. He would flat pick a lot of those old fiddle songs, and then he would thumb pick a lot, mostly in the Travis style. If you watch how he's playing, he's doing that thumb and pointer. And I usually cheat a little bit. I'll use the other fingers too, don't tell anybody. But yeah, I was very entertained by his playing, and I would think that in terms of that acoustic style, a lot of it has to do with Doc Watson, just sort of the way he would just transition between the two, as you said earlier, flat picking and thumb picking. So, but there's all sorts of players. I mean, I'm very into jazz players. There's a player called Lenny Breau that most guitarists would know out there, and he's out of this world in terms of playing jazz licks and just all these incredible chord combinations and arrangements that I also try to insert in the playing. So it's not just old backwoods picking. I try to take a little bit from. I mean, I might take a little bit from bossa nova, or I might take a little bit from a West Montgomery lick or something. But I'm just into anybody who took the time to really play the guitar.
Yeah. You grew up in Boone, North Carolina, and was a lot of that music around you growing up, or did you have to seek it out?
Well, the Doc Watson music was, and like I said, I got to see him live. I think there's good and bad things about this new digital age, if you will, of media and whatnot. And but the good thing about it for me was to be able to dig up a lot of things online. People ask, do you take guitar lessons? Some people ask that. Some people say you need guitar lessons. It just depends on who I'm talking to, But yeah, the internet has really led me to take guitar lessons from people that never knew they were giving them to me. So I can go and look up an old hee-haw show of Chet Atkins or whatever, or look up, I think there's that one video of Django Reinhardt that does exist out there, for example. Or, it's just, you're able to go out and dig up things that they're right at your fingertips, So just because it wasn't around North Carolina, doesn't mean that I couldn't get it. It wasn't accessible to me pretty easily. However, I will say that sort of through those players like Doc Watson, it led me to other. Doc played with Chet, for example. He had an album, at least one with him, and so that you sort of follow the breadcrumb trail from one player to the next. And I did get to see all sorts of players when I was younger. In fact, I did see Chet Atkins. I just remembered this. I saw Chet Atkins when I was about 7 years old and Doc Watson on the ASU, Appalachian State University, that is, football field. So I didn't even remember that until now. I was very young. But yes, that's so I actually did see both of them live together at one time. But yeah, it didn't necessarily have to be from that area to answer your question. But some of the players around that area certainly led me to others, in Nashville and elsewhere.
Yeah. Were you developing your guitar playing and your singing at the same time, or did you first play and then later sing, or how did that develop?
I don't know. I think that it was sort of split, to be honest, because if a singer, I love listening to old R&B or like I said earlier, bossa nova. Someone like Antonio Carlos Jobim, or it doesn't have to be from the style that I primarily play, which I guess would be called Americana, but I don't really know what Americana even means. It's like 9 or 10 different genres in one bundle, But I like, I could be inspired by Carter Stanley, or I could be inspired by Frank Sinatra, or Louis Jordan, or Louis Armstrong. It doesn't really matter. I used to be very into Jimi Hendrix, and I still am, but have sort of exhausted almost his recordings, and still love revisiting them frequently. But I used to be very inspired by the way he sang. People that might be known for something else. That it's fun. I always think it's funny how Jimi Hendrix is known for being this amazing guitarist, which he is, but it almost downplays you're almost underrated in other categories. What about his voice? What about all his writing? He was multifaceted in his skill level. But I just I listened to so many different styles of singers, I think, and so that led me to develop the voice. But yeah, I would think that it was a little bit outside of the guitar playing to answer that.
Yeah. Would you mind playing another song?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Or I would not mind. People answer those questions. They say, "Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I would mind." Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I'm not gonna do it.
I am absolutely not gonna play you anything. No, I'll play it over. Here, this is a song. This is one of those songs that I wrote, I think, all in one sitting, which is very rare for me. I was gonna say earlier too. To go back to what I was saying, someone like Bob Dylan, who people people talk about how his voice, that's what I hear almost every gig I play when I do a Bob Dylan cover is, he could write, what about his voice or whatever, but there's a lot of songs that he sang that I'm very inspired by the vocal performance of,
Last night I saw you play Don't Think Twice, It's
All
Right.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's one of those classic tunes that, lot of people did. I think Doc did it, and Ramblin' Jack Elliott. So I think Bob Dylan sort of gave it to Ramblin' Jack when he saw him play it. I think that's the story. But anyway, there's songs from like the Freewheelin', like Carina Carina, the way Dylan sings that. Life don't mean a thing. You know, there's all these moves that, and then, you know, obviously the Nashville Skyline is sort of known for a different style of singing from him. But, you know, there's people that, I guess the point is that, you know, there's people that you would be very obvious that you get influences from, and there's people that you might not think it. You might think that this person isn't a good singer, but, you know, it's definitely inspired me to want to sing. You know. But anyway, here's a song. It's called Little Coal Mining Town. This is how it all went down in a little coal mining town, in a little coal mining town. Henry Haynes got laid off with no hard feelings for his boss. His company just couldn't afford the cost. He'd been working 20 years in the Panhandle to support his wife Carita and their son Daniel. His family life was heading for shambles. This is how it all went down in a little coal mining town, in a little coal mining town. Next month, I went on a drinking binge. He burned the bridges between his few close friends. He lost his wife, found heroin. Hey Henry, is that you? You don't look like you used to. Not like the good man we once knew. Yeah, this is how it all went down in a little coal mining town, in a little coal mining town. Outside, the protesters become violent. They don't agree with the political climate. They can no longer remain silent. And this is how it all went down in a little coal mining town, in a little coal mining town. In a little coal mining town.
Yeah. So on your new record, there's going to be 11 songs, 10 of which you wrote, including the one you just performed.
Yeah.
Now, do you have any particular way of writing? Does it come with the music first, or a lyric, or any which way?
An interesting question. Yeah, and I think a lot of writers get that question and have different answers for it. That's what I was trying to go into earlier when I went off on another tangent. That's kind of how my mind works. But I like, for example, that song "Little Coal Mining Town." I actually wrote, I think, all in one sitting. I think almost all of it was written in one sitting, and it just sort of came to me. And that's usually not how it works for me. But I almost always come up with the music first. You know, the music seems to come more naturally, at least when it comes to my writing. And then the lyrics seem to be the painful part. You have to kind of eke your way through them, or through the process of writing them. But every now and then you get a song like that where it just sort of, it's almost like it came from somewhere. You're just sort of the vehicle for it. I've heard a lot of other artists say it that way. And that's how it feels sometimes. In other ways, it seems like you're manifesting the entire thing. But yeah, I think that song is an example of one that just comes naturally to you. But for me, I almost always write the music first, and then I might sit on a song for there was a song on this last record I think I had the idea for almost 10 years ago, and then there's another song that I finished writing the morning of recording. So I don't record, linearly in terms of, what's current writing. I can pick and choose from whenever from a kind of a back burner of a repertoire of songs I've been trying to write for a long time. But yeah, if I had to put a rhyme or reason to it, which there really isn't much of one, but it's just sort of music before the lyrics, and then you sort of slowly fill in the lyrics. That's kind of how my process seems to work mostly.
So when I produce an artist's record and we are in a position where there are more songs to choose from, then we can record for an album because you only have so much time. So an artist usually has an idea of which are the artist's favorites, and then me as a producer might have a different opinion. So for example, there's this track that an artist doesn't necessarily think is one of their favorites, but it might strike me as strong, and I might suggest to record that and add to the pile. Now, when you went in this record with Buzz, do you had a very clear idea which songs you wanted to record, or did he influence that process somehow?
That's another great question. I mean, when it comes to this exact record, because there were two songs that I came in and I'd sent him probably 15 to 20, somewhere around there, songs. And I came in and I've recorded a few records before this one, back in North Carolina. And so I came in and he had sort of, we kind of loosely talked about which ones we wanted. I told him which ones I liked. I liked that last one and I wanted to record that one. But he wanted to record two songs off the last album I did, and I had not thought about doing that. And here we are. This is the day before we're starting the record, and he sort of we kind of went over the songs that we thought were the best, kind of with both of our opinions from the list we had. We condensed it down to about 10, and but then he had these two songs from the last record he wanted to recut. He thought that they had potential, and I had recorded them for a reason back in the day, if you will. But I had not thought of recutting them for this album. So that's an example of precisely what you're talking about. Is he heard something in prior tunes that I'd recorded that he thought had potential. Now, like I said, I wrote them for a reason, or I recorded them for a reason. I at one time thought they were worth recording, and still did when I heard his reassurance, basically. But I was not considered. I had not had that on my radar until the day before we recorded. And I thought, well, I know the song. I did write it. I wrote the lyrics to it, so I can probably remember most of them. And if Buzz has he has a whole history, this illustrious career of sort of being involved with a lot of big musical moments, in Nashville. And I thought, if he sees something in these songs, in particular, I think I need to listen to him. And he's not saying you need to record this song, this type of song. He chose from songs I had already written and recorded. So I thought, well, I'm getting it pretty good. Most people, if they get a deal or something, they might have some producer that says, well, we have a writer for you that's going to write you a whole new song and a style for you, and we're going to get you a nice hairstylist, and we're going to change your name, and we're going to you're not even going to be the same person, and that'll be great for the for the masses. But I thought that I had a pretty good end of it. But yeah, that's probably the best example of that happening is him choosing two songs that were older to go back and revisit. And yeah, I was happy with the way they came out too. So I think it was a good move.
Yeah, and that's a good example of sometimes having a mirror or a sounding board or somebody else to bounce ideas off to add to a final product. It might not be exactly what you had in mind initially, but it might add another dimension to it that you would have not anticipated.
That's what I loved about this process, was just that he, you know, I was able to sort of come to the table with ideas and then watch them get animated by people who have done this a lot. You know, and so I was only responsible for bringing the songs, singing the leads, and playing the acoustic guitar. You know, and I obviously I had my ideas that we would just sort of bounce ideas off each other. But it is kind of nice to finally get to the place where people are producing you and sort of, you know, might have a vision that you never saw before that moment.
Yeah, and what you mentioned was just, you know, go in and play and sing. I guess an important, you know, job for a producer is to make the artist feel at ease and feel comfortable and not necessarily have to worry too much about anything that would deter from the performance itself.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, that was another thing that they did very well. I mean, we were, you know, the first day I came in, I didn't know if I was going to show up and be recording in that hour of entering the studio, you know, and I was kind of nervous about it and everything. And I showed up the first day, and Buzz had just booked a day for us just to sort of go over the songs and talk. And we went out and got some food, and we were talking about like old television shows and things. I mean, we weren't even, you know, it was, and I look back now and I go, wow, that was, I think, pretty smart of him, because by the next day I was ready. You know, I was at ease. I was ready to come in and work. You know,
set the mood.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and so there was certainly something, you could tell there was experience there on his end and on Parker's end too, where, you know, we're trying to make this natural. We're not trying to make you shaking through it, and that helped me, I think, quite a bit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You have another song off the record?
Oh, I got songs. I got some songs, I think. Let's see. I got another tune. This is a song. This is one of those songs I wrote probably within 2 or 3 weeks of recording this, or right before, you know, recording it. I didn't write it after we recorded it. That would be kind of a weird.
That would be a new way of making a record.
That would be a whole new thing. But yeah, no, this is a song that's, I think Townes Van Zandt said something like he wrote a song and then he learned what it was about a few weeks later, or something like that. Well, this song was written prior to recording, and it's called Restless at Home and Lonesome on the Road. Choose your allies. There's a real war at rise. Some might be fighting battles far from home. Some might be fighting demons of their own. Open your eyes, for the time's here to get wise. And if the devil comes back for what is owed, you'll be restless at home, lonesome on the road. I've seen so many unsatisfied, as if their soul's been denied, cowering in the shadows of the cold, faded in spirits that were once so bold. But if you don't take the time to get your rest and rambling in line, you might not learn no matter how much you're told. You'll be restless at home, lonesome on the road. Your allies, there's a real war at rise. Some might be fighting battles far from home. Some might be fighting demons of their own. But if you don't take the time to get your rest and rambling in line, you might not learn no matter how much you're told. You'll be restless at home, lonesome on the road. You'll be restless at home, lonesome on the road. You'll be restless at home, lonesome on the road.
Yeah, and you're gonna hit the road here very soon.
Yes, sir.
Where are you gonna be going through?
There's a circuit that I've been developing. This is the third tour I've done around the USA, at least some fairly major cities around the country. And I start off in Boone, North Carolina. I go down to Asheville and then Atlanta, and then Alabama, New Orleans, Austin, Texas, Grand Canyon, and Los Angeles. There's a few stops in between, obviously, but that's sort of the idea, to get to the other side. And then I spend quite a bit of time. I think the majority of the tour is really going up the West Coast. There's probably about 7 shows or so at least. And I go up through San Francisco and above it. There's a great place in Petaluma called the Big Easy. I love stopping there and playing. And I go up to Northern California. And there's even a radio show out there, Mendocino Public Radio, that I've gone on a couple times, and we'll be out there in August. I think it's August 18th, if I'm not mistaken, in the morning show out there. But and then after I'm out there for a while, this tour I actually might go up through Oregon, but we'll have to see if those dates will fall into place. But regardless, I come back through the middle route of the country and hit Salt Lake City, and then a few spots in Colorado. There's Boulder, Winter Park, and then Denver, and then I drive through Kansas, and put the cruise control on and drive through all these parts of the country and land back in Nashville, Tennessee, and sort of conclude the tour. And a lot of times, I think, the last 2, I've had a show in Boone to conclude it. So you start there and you end there. But it's this loop of the country. Anywhere about 6,000 to 7,000 miles, and hit quite a few major cities and play a few gigs in most places that I go. So, and every tour I've added shows to the bill, to the itinerary. And so the idea is to keep visiting the same places, but also to make the drives. The first tour was maybe like anywhere from 5 to 8 hours between each gig. Now the second one was maybe 3 to 5, and now hopefully this time I'm stopping every few hours to play a gig, and I'm not pushing through empty parts of the of my schedule. But that's the idea behind it, and I want to hopefully continue to build that type of tour and that circuit.
Yeah, and if anybody listening is interested in booking you, your website is brooksforsyth.com. And
how did we come up with that? I don't know.
I don't know.
It's interesting.
We're like, what's that
creative.
When yeah, I thought it was like, David Bowie used to write songs by just picking random words out of a hat.
Right.
I think that's what we did.
That's pretty much
right?
how he landed on that.
But anyway,
Brooks,
there's a contact
Forsyth.com.
form on there. If anybody's interested in booking, they can hit you up, and hopefully you can go wherever the demand is coming from.
Yeah, I'll come to you. Just let me know. Give me a couple days in advance. We can fly. I'll fly a private jet out to where you are, and play your show, and I'll be back for dinner. But
yeah,
we're open to almost anywhere. Just
by the way, something, and you mentioned New Orleans earlier a little bit, Louis Armstrong, and it's not necessarily something you're gonna touch on the record, but sometimes when I hear you play, like especially that song you did before, I can almost hear a little bit of New Orleans in it. You also did like Nobody Knows You When You're Down and Out Last Night.
Yeah.
And a little bit of that very southern blues that I love. Sometimes I could almost hear like
blues.
a muted trumpet, with you.
Mm-hmm. The style I did that one was kind of a country blues, but yeah, I mean oh gosh, I love jazz music, and I mean every time I've been to New Orleans, it's changed my life. I think for the better, and it's it's just so full of culture. I mean, it's almost like you can't leave that town without sort of getting kind of drenched in culture.
It's fake.
Whether it's whether it's the food or you know the art, but you know, I think that I spent a lot of time. I played with a guy named Robert Hunt, and there was a band called the Major Sevens, and we still play together quite often. But you know, him and I, and you know, both got into jazz. He sort of got very deeply into a lot of jazz music, and I think was one of the main people who really turned me on to other jazz music. Another guy I played with, Drayton Aldridge, who also, you know, was really into all kinds of jazz and Western swing, but you know, we focused on, you know, the old school stuff of New Orleans, all the way up into hard bop and just, you know, all kinds of different jazz styles. So I like to think that, you know, by traveling around and also playing, you know, we used to always play, you know, or you know, something that is real swinging, you know, opposed to something that's more like, you know, something that's real bluesy or kind of country bluesy. And so I like to, you know, I don't want to have too many rules. I while trying to respect each genre respectfully, you know, I also like to kind of sort of break those rules a little bit and kind of blur the lines between the different genres. And if you can put certain jazz riffs or licks in an older song, perhaps you're, you know, kind of creating an amalgamation of different styles, which I'm pretty into, as long as I can try to be respectful of the genres. You know, the purists of each genre might not always appreciate that too, you know,
but
so
you know,
I try to make it
sometimes
respectful.
I don't think it's mutually exclusive, because somebody like Willie Nelson, who's like
Absolutely.
known as this epitome of country, if you'd ask him, he would probably think he's a jazz guitar player.
Yeah, he
And his phrasing a lot of the time too, or people like Doug Sum, or, you know,
Mm-hmm.
there's just like, there's a lot of jazz in unlikely places to be found.
Absolutely. I mean, I've heard multiple interviews with Willie Nelson where he's talking about Django Reinhardt. I think that it takes some people for a spin.
I think
expect him
Django and Charlie Christian are like
Charlie
some
Christian.
of his like main influences.
and you can hear the licks in there when he takes breaks, you know. So yeah, it's not something that I'm certainly not the first person to do that, and that's how musical styles evolve. I just think, especially like I come from, you know, an area where bluegrass is very prevalent, and you know, people want to talk about that their new music is bluegrass, and you know, bluegrass is a pretty distinct style. At least the traditional style of bluegrass, it's almost like you can't come up with new bluegrass. At that point, it's almost a different genre. You know, it's almost like respecting the old style of it is what the genre is. At least when I've talked to these traditional players or the purists of the genre. And then you have, you know, the offshoots of it, like new grass and folk or whatever you want to call it. But you know, I think that there is a way to, I don't know, offend is a pretty strong word, but it's almost that there is a way to sort of irritate people who have put their time in really preserving a genre. So I try to be respectful, as I said earlier, about that, but I also try to have fun with it. You know.
Well, there are always going to be the purists that that's what they want. But I think if somebody honestly references the history, and obviously you studied it, I mean, that's just by, you know, watching you perform, that's evident. And I think nobody can deny that, because they can say, oh, he put the time in, he learned, and then maybe he'll be able to take it, you know, somewhere else. And last night, Buzz and Bill Wentz, our radio promoter, and I, you know, went to see you perform. And you did this interesting medley of Cannonball Rag and Salty Dog Blues.
Oh yeah.
And to me, that's like a way to, you know, pay tribute to the roots, but still finding an original spin by combining it and taking it somewhere else.
Yeah, I wonder if people have done that before. I mean, I'm sure it's happened before. But I always think it's interesting when you can find, a lot of songs overlap. There's a lot of overlap in different songs, So when songs are similar, sometimes I try to create these little medleys of them, and that's just a product of that.
Yeah. Would you mind?
Oh yeah, I can play it for sure.
It's not on the record, and I want to make sure we represent the record enough. But this to me shows another interesting side of what you can do live.
Yeah, and I've even talked to Buzz about maybe cutting this or something similar to it on the next one that we do. But yeah, I'll do it right now. This is a sort of a mixture between the Cannonball Rag, which Merle Travis was, I guess, the most known for doing. It's sort of a rite of passage, I think, for some finger pickers out there. But Doc Watson used to do it. I mean, a lot of finger pickers have played it. And like I said, I will be cheating a little bit. I'll be using more fingers than just two. And then the Salty Dog Blues. I don't even know who wrote it, but I know that almost everybody in the bluegrass and folk world has gone over that song before. Earl Scruggs and Lester Flatt definitely did a great version of it. But here we go. This is the Cannonball Rag / the Salty Dog Blues. I'm standing on the corner with low-down blues, a great big hole in the bottom of my shoes. Honey, let me be your salty dog. Let me be your salty dog, I won't be your man at all. Honey, let me be your salty dog. Well, a nickel's a nickel and a dime's a dime. The girls don't like me 'cause I'm taking my time. Honey, let me be your salty dog. Let me be your salty dog, I won't be your man at all. Honey, let me be your salty dog. Let me pick one now. Sitting on a log, my finger on the trigger in my own hog. Honey, let me be your salty dog. Let me be your salty dog, I won't be your man at all. Honey, let me be your salty dog. I pulled the trigger and the gun set go, and the shot fell over in Mexico. Honey, let me be your salty dog. Let me be your salty dog, I won't be your man at all. Honey, let me be your salty dog. Yeah, let me be your salty dog, I won't be your man at all. Honey, let me be your salty dog. Let me be your salty dog, I won't be your man at all. Honey, let me be your salty dog. 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 Honey, let me be your salty dog.
Yeah, I like that. I like
Thank you.
that. I sure do. Hey, we talked about some of your influences as a guitar player, but what about vocally?
Okay. Well, I mean, I think we touched on it a tiny bit earlier, but it's not just old. You know, I mean, I love the way like Ray Price used to sing. You know, when he sang that Willie Nelson's Nightlife or something like that. I mean, Hank Williams. You know, what singer that's even crossed over any of these genres didn't get inspired by Hank Williams? Many did, I think. But you know, when he does his yodeling and whatnot, and you know, Hank Williams would make these. It was almost like he'd make these sounds with his voice that were. He would sort of embody the things he was talking about. That long, you know, something like that, or long, you know, he would have. That's a pretty awful version of it, but yeah, that sounds like someone who just woke up or something. But you know, I think that someone like Hank Williams or Jimmy Rogers or those old school country singers that most people would probably reference. But you know, I really like Patsy Cline. I mean, who doesn't? You know, her vocals are close to impeccable, if not. And you know, there's all kinds of singers. Like I said earlier, I like the way Jimi Hendrix sings. I'm really into his voice, or Nat King Cole, or you know, I mean, or you know, Mongolian throat singers. You know, it doesn't have to be somebody who is in the current pop scene. You know what I mean? And not that you would think that, but what I'm trying to make light of is that the influences can come from anywhere. So it's not someone that is just you know, not someone just like a Willie Nelson or whatever. Although I love Willie Nelson's vocals too. You know, so it's just a bit of everybody. You know.
Yeah. So, we've been talking here, you know, 45 minutes. It's really interesting to get to know you a little bit more and talk about your craft, your art. We haven't really had that chance before. So, anyway, to make a long story short, I just wish you the best of luck with this tour, with this record. Hopefully it'll open some, you know, new doors and lead to some interesting opportunities. And thank you for being my guest today. Oh,
well, it was such a pleasure, Andreas. You know, you have a way of really making me open up to the world here. You know, I got rambling many times on this track, and I want to tell everyone thanks for listening, and you know, follow what you think is your destiny out there. And but I do really appreciate it, and I appreciate you saying good luck to me, and I'm just trying to make it to the next show.
Yeah, and the record is called So Much Beyond Us, which is also the name of a song.
Yes.
And it's on Arena Recordings.
Yeah.
And would you mind taking us out with your solo version of Annalie?
Oh, Annalie, why'd you leave? Yeah, why not? Let's do that.
Back when called you a friend, seems like it's been so much time. I've been lost in the past we crossed, and mountains grown hard to climb. Why'd you leave? Left me hanging out to dry. Money's gone, she moved on. Now I hang my head and cry. Where'd you go, sweet long lost soul? I still wonder where you're gone. I still cold with the fleeting
Ain't you ever coming home? Annalie, why'd you leave? Left me hanging out to dry. Money's gone, she moved on. Now I hang my head and cry. Annalie, why'd you leave? Left me hanging out to dry. Money's gone, she moved on. Now I hang my head and cry. Money's gone, she moved on. Now I hang my head and cry.
This was the 35th episode of the Crazy Chester Radio Hour. We taped it at Buzz Cason's legendary Creative Workshop recording studio in the Berry Hill neighborhood of Nashville. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to check out some of the earlier episodes and subscribe to the Crazy Chester Radio Hour on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, or wherever you may be listening. If you'd like to get a copy of Brooks' new album, So Much Beyond Us, go to brooksforsyth.com or arenarecordings.net, and it will be available on iTunes, Amazon, and all the usual outlets on Friday, September the 21st. Goodbye for now. Until next week.